Let's dive right into this explainer and track the visceral, chaotic journey of Henry Hill. We're looking at a neighborhood kid whose alluring, glamorous fantasy of the mafia steadily twisted into a complete nightmare of paranoia and betrayal. You know that famous sentiment, right? For young Henry, the mob was basically a golden ticket to be a somebody in a neighborhood full of nobodies. Long before he even wandered into the local cab stand for an after-school job, he just knew he wanted to be a part of their world. I mean, the working-class life of his father, constantly struggling with bills, cramming 7 people into a tiny house, it just seemed like a total dead end. But right across the street, running errands for the local neighborhood boss, Polly Cicero, Henry finally found a place where he truly belonged. Section 1. The Allure of the Mob. So it really wasn't just about the crime itself. It was this entire insulated lifestyle, completely separated from the struggles of normal, everyday people. To a young kid, the mob was the ultimate fantasy. You're 13 years old and you're making way more cash than most grown adults operating entirely above the law. Think about how incredibly seductive that level of unchecked power is for anyone who feels powerless. They double parked right in front of fire hydrants and nobody ever gave them a ticket. On Sunday mornings, Henry didn't even have to wait in line at the bakery for fresh bread. The owner knew exactly who he was with and served him first. They commanded absolute neighborhood respect, and beneath it all was the ironclad protection from Polly Cicero, who essentially acted as a private police department for wise guys, offering protection for people who couldn't exactly go to the actual cops. Section 2. High Stakes and High Life. Now, as Henry gets older and teams up with legendary hijackers like Jimmy Conway, we really start to see how this criminal economy actually functioned day to day. And honestly, the mob operated like a total parasite. They wouldn't just steal cargo from the airport. They would completely bleed legitimate businesses dry. For example, when a restaurant owner inevitably fell into debt with the mob, Paulie became his partner. And that meant the mob could do whatever they wanted. They'd run up massive bills on the joint's credit, take deliveries right at the front door, and immediately sell those same goods out the back at a steep discount. It was pure, unadulterated profit. And then, when there was absolutely nothing left, when the business couldn't borrow another single buck, they'd bust the joint out. They simply lit a match and burned the whole place down. Section 3. The Unwritten Mob Rules. Because behind all those endless parties, the stolen cargo, and the giant wads of cash in every pocket, there was actually a fiercely strict, ruthless code governing every single interaction. These were the foundational laws Henry learned from his very first arrest. Caught selling stolen cigarettes as a kid, he didn't say a single word to the authorities. His mentor, Jimmy Conway, was absolutely thrilled, telling him he just learned the 2 greatest things in life: never rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut. But there was another fundamental, unbreakable rule in this world. You never, ever touch a made man. To become a made member, you had to be 100% Italian, and once you were made, you were completely untouchable. But you gotta ask, what happens when those ironclad rules actually get broken? Well, the whole glamorous facade starts to crack pretty quickly. We see this exact thing happen when Tommy impulsively and wildly recklessly murders Billy Batts, who was an untouchable made man in the Gambino crew. Batts had just come home from prison and made the fatal mistake of insulting Tommy over his past as a shoeshine boy. In a sudden, explosive fit of absolute rage, Tommy, aided by Jimmy, viciously beats and murders Batts. This was a massive violation of the rules. You were supposed to have a formal sit-down and get an official okay before even thinking about touching a made guy. Instead, they just threw him in the trunk of a car and buried him upstate. This is where any romanticized illusion of family loyalty gets totally shattered. It reveals this incredibly cold, transactional reality where friends just casually murdered friends to settle an argument or cover their tracks. Hits literally became a habit. Guys would get into petty arguments over absolutely nothing, and before you knew it, someone was dead. Shooting people just became a normal, everyday thing. It was literally the only way everybody stayed in line. Section 4. Lufthansa and the Downfall. So, the very same ambition that built their criminal empire is exactly what ends up destroying it. What was supposed to be their ultimate crowning score, millions of untraceable dollars from the Lufthansa cargo terminal at Kennedy Airport, instantly turns into a completely deadly liability. Jimmy masterminded the entire operation, bringing in this massive crew. It was a flawless execution, resulting in the biggest haul this town had literally ever seen. But almost immediately in the aftermath, the crew starts making these incredibly flashy amateur mistakes. Jimmy had given strict, explicit orders. Do not attract attention. Don't buy anything big. And yet, almost immediately, guys are literally showing up to the Christmas party having bought a brand new pink Cadillac and a $20,000 mink coat. Stax gets stoned and completely fails to compact the getaway truck, just leaving it right there for the cops to find. Meanwhile, Maury is relentlessly demanding his $500,000 share of the cut. These reckless, stupid actions completely shatter their cover, absolutely enraging Jimmy and setting off a chaotic chain reaction of brutal executions to cut all ties to the robbery. The crew is just systematically wiped out. Section 5. Paranoia and Betrayal. As the heat from the authorities really cranks up, that whole honor among thieves idea, it just completely evaporates into this intense cocaine-fueled paranoia. The walls are rapidly closing in. Just look at this timeline of Henry's wildly erratic final day as a mobster. It is a chaotic blur. He's frantically trying to balance family dinners with high-stakes drug dealing, all while under super heavy FBI surveillance. In the morning, he's braising beef and veal shanks for a big family meal. By the afternoon, he's driving wildly through the streets, completely convinced a helicopter is tracking him from above. In the evening, he's trying to move silencers for Jimmy and prep drug mules for flights. And then that night, as he backs out of his driveway, the local cops he thought were just tailing him turn out to be narcs. They stick a gun right in his face, and his entire reign comes to a screeching, crashing halt. Once Henry is arrested, and his wife Karen flushes their remaining stash of drugs down the toilet to avoid the search warrant, they are left with absolutely nothing. Paulie totally turns his back on Henry, hands him a pathetic, paltry sum of cash, and just cuts ties completely. Jimmy, terrified that Henry might actually talk to the feds, plots to have him killed by sending him on a bogus hit down in Florida. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that when the money dries up, the mob family immediately turns on its own. As Henry grimly realizes, if you're part of a crew, nobody warns you. Your murderers come with smiles. They come as your friends, the very people who cared for you all your life, striking exactly when you're at your absolute weakest. Section 6. Life as a schnook. To save his own life and protect his family, Henry breaks the ultimate, sacred mob rule. He cooperates with the government, literally tearing down the very empire he helped build. He actually takes the stand, pointing out Jimmy and Paulie in open court. And the stark contrast of what happens next is just unforgettable. Henry trades a life of infinite wealth and absolute freedom for the incredibly dull, flavorless safety of the witness protection program. I mean, at the mob's peak, anything he wanted was just a phone call away. They paid off cops, lawyers, judges. They were treated like royalty. But in witness protection, the action is entirely gone. He has to wait in line just like everyone else. And in this ultimate absurd irony for a formerly feared Italian mobster, he orders spaghetti with marinara sauce, and they hand him egg noodles and ketchup. So it leaves us with this really heavy, lingering question to wrap up the narrative. Is the allure of the mob, the endless money, the free cars, the total disregard for the rules of society, is it really worth the inevitable outcome? Was a life of limitless power actually worth living the rest of it completely stripped of your identity, constantly looking over your shoulder as an average nobody, a schnook?